So week 0 of college football just ended, and I feel like with the games that we were given, we got every possible result that could happen in a football game. Out of the 9 games that were played in Division 1 this week, 4 of them involved Group of 5 teams. And oh man, some of them put on a good show for us. Welcome to Groupies, a little video series where I recap all of the shenanigans that happened in the G5 world of college football, because what even happened this week? I understand this is like the appetizer for next week, but mine is like an overtime thriller. These were all genuinely good games. Now, because it's week 0, not a lot of teams played games this time around, only 4 in fact. So I thought, just for week 0 alone, I thought I would be nice enough to include all the games and recap the FCS games that happened this week. That brings up our total tally to 8 this week, and trust me, most of these games were just as good as the ones in FBS. Now with the insanity that was Saturday out of the way, let's get to recapping. I'll be doing these games in chronological order. It's 1 p.m., and most people are watching the Midwest rival wet weather shootout that is the Farmageddon in Ireland. Quietly though, the FCS season kicks off with a highly anticipated conference matchup. The 4th-ranked Incarnate Word Cardinals is traveling to meet Louisiana's Nicholas Colonels. Now, Incarnate Word is one of the best FCS programs this decade, where last season, predicted to finish 2nd in the conference, steamrolled all of their opponents and made it to the quarterfinals of the playoffs, where they would eventually fall to South Dakota State. Their opponent was the one projected to finish 1st last season. Unfortunately for Nicholas, instead of challenging for the Southland title, they finished a lonely 4-8 with 2 wins in conference play. When they went on the road to face Incarnate Word last year, they beat the brakes off of them. At that point, Nicholas was almost out of a playoff spot, while Incarnate Word was the 15th best team in FCS. This time it's the first game of the season, and the Colonels are at a massive disadvantage. They're projected to finish 5th in the conference, while Incarnate Word is projected to win it. As they were hosting a top 5 team in FCS, in all likelihood it wasn't expected to look good. So what happened? Near the end of the first, it's tied 3-3 and Incarnate Word has the ball. Then this play happens.
Compton in motion. Torres looking to his right. Short throw, dangerous throw. Bobbled and picked off. Going the other way for 6. Ty Marsh. A huge play for the Nichols defense.
This score practically threw all the momentum to Nichols. That lead would be extended, but 2 missed field goals meant that Incarnate Word was still in the game. After Nichols dropped the ball on the punt return, Incarnate Word was able to score a field goal. This was after they punted their last 7 drives. Nonetheless, the struggles of the offense on the Incarnate Word in giving away 2 interceptions meant that the Colonels finished the game with a shocking 20-6 result over the 4th best FCS team. This was the first unranked over ranked upset of the season, and by looking at the box score, it was not a huge surprise to see why. Incarnate Word had 4 turnovers, including 3 interceptions by the quarterback. Meanwhile, Nichols' Deuce Holgan threw for 200 yards and 1 touchdown. Overall, while it wasn't a high-scoring game, it was certainly a very interesting one, and it will be exciting to see how these 2 teams shape up over the course of the season. Late in the afternoon, UNLV would host the Idaho State Bengals, who were a 25-point underdog to the Rebels. Now, the season for UNLV isn't going to obviously be as easy as the last one, but for a team like Idaho State who didn't even finish above 500, it should be easy to take care of them, right? Well, Idaho State wasn't going to win this game lying down. They first got up to a 10-0 lead, before UNLV would score 2 touchdowns to make it 14-10. It was a pretty back-and-forth first half, but by the end of it, Idaho State was leading UNLV 17-14. During that time, UNLV would fumble the ball and miss a field goal. One of these mistakes, Idaho State would get the ball and return it for a touchdown. The mayhem continued in the 3rd quarter, where UNLV would go up 24-17 before the Idaho State Bengals tied it right back. Things weren't looking too good for the Rebels coming into the 4th quarter, as Idaho State would retake the lead again to make it 31-24. But a break would come through. Idaho State had already thrown 2 interceptions on the day, and at this point the defense was unable to keep the UNLV out of the end zone. Those huge errors was one of the biggest reasons why UNLV was able to keep themselves in the game, and eventually they would get the defining ones.
Quarter number 4, all tied at 31. Cook drops back, looks left, now throws it over the middle. It's picked off. That's Marcel McDuffie at the 25. He is brought down at the 21.
Idaho State would throw consecutive interceptions, one of which UNLV would make for a touchdown. And with those 7 crucial points in the bag, Idaho State would eventually run out of downs to tie the game. UNLV would win a nail-biter, 38-31. In all retrospect, this should not have been a game that was competitive, at least in UNLV's view. Idaho State's Jordan Cook ended up throwing for 380 yards, but at the same time threw 3 picks. But thanks to him and running back Dason Brooks, UNLV's defense gave up over 500 yards. Granted, UNLV also produced 500 yards of offense. Jadon Thomas's 3 touchdowns on the ground practically saved the day for this team. But Idaho State's 4 turnovers is what caused UNLV to win this game. I fully understand that UNLV has a lot to work on, especially with the players they're given. But if this is the result of Dan Mullen's first game as a head coach for this team, you might be in some trouble. Nonetheless, a win is a win, performance can only go up from here, and UNLV will be one of the few teams in the Mountain West to record a victory for this week. Just a bit after Idaho State and UNLV kicked off, the Portland State Vikings would host the number 8 team, Tarleton State Texans. Now, Tarleton State is a fairly new but improving FCS program. Last season, the Texans would make the second round of the FCS playoffs, finishing as the number 12 team in the nation. The same could not be said for Portland State, a team that finished 3-8 last season and has been struggling at the bottom half of the Big Sky for nearly a decade. The game got off to a rough start, first Tarleton State fumbling the ball before on their second attempt would run it in for a touchdown. For Portland State, the Vikings threw an interception that Tarleton State couldn't convert. After they did score a touchdown, the Vikings would throw another interception 5 minutes later. With missed opportunities on both sides, the first half would end with a score of 14-0 for the Tarleton State Texans. Now, this is where their offense kicked in. With a lot of help from Trey Page, Cody Jackson, and Peyton Kramer, Tarleton State would run away with this game, leading to a thrashing of 42-0 and making it the first shutout of the season. While the Texans had their own issues, Portland State turned the ball over 4 times, including 3 thrown interceptions and a fumble near their own end zone. To note, Tarleton State produced over 450 yards with at least 300 on the ground. With 7 touchdowns made by 5 different players, they left Portland, Oregon with a statement win on their opening game. It's now the evening, and the Power 5 Kansas Jayhawks will be hosting the Fresno State Bulldogs. For the challenge that they were up against, it was a fairly close game at first, being only down by 7 at the end of the first. Elijah Gillum was the one that scored the touchdown for Fresno State. It will also be only 1 of 2 times he gets the ball all night. Unfortunately, this is where the talent discrepancy began to show. While Jalen Daniels was having one of the best nights he could have, the Rice transfer E.J. Warner could not live up to expectations. While he threw for nearly 180 yards, he also threw 2 picks and in addition was sacked for a huge loss and fumbled the ball to Kansas. Because of these woes, it ended up putting the game out of reach for Fresno State, and by the time the Kansas offense slowed down, they weren't able to keep moving the ball. Fresno State would lose the game 31-7. Despite the final result, it wasn't all bad for Fresno State. The wide receivers produced yards when they could, and Jadon Pearson on defense was able to register 10 solo tackles, including 1 for loss of yardage. This was E.J. Warner's first game as a Bulldog, so if he's able to get into shape, then Fresno State should be able to fare much better against G5 opponents. For now, it's a rough start to the season, starting a chip down against the rest of its Mountain West opponents. Back at the FCS level, a ranked matchup begins at FCS kickoff with UC Davis versus Mercer. This was a higher ranked matchup, as both teams finished top 10 in the nation and making the quarterfinals of the FCS playoffs. While it was highly anticipated to be a very competitive matchup, I think some of you already know what happened, so I'm going to be brief about this. The game was interesting. It was a very back and forth first half. One team clearly came more prepared, as by the end of the first half, it was a score of 21-3. Also, I want to keep my show nice, but this is a reminder to the NCAA, please do a better job at scorekeeping. This is just not acceptable. Do better. Okay, thank you. By the time the game was called off, UC Davis almost put up 300 yards. Some things going to redshirt freshman quarterback Caden Pinnock, who ended up contributing 2 touchdowns for the day. The team also registered 28 solo tackles, 12 of which came from Rex Connors, the senior defensive back. But what UC Davis was doing was not about to compare to what Mercer was about to pull off. Down 23-3, they began manufacturing a comeback. Thanks to their running back Octavius Ison and quarterback DJ Smith, they were able to score 2 touchdowns and make it a 6-point game by the end of the third quarter. The offensive production was turned up to 11, recording almost 400 yards. In the middle of the fourth, Mercer was in UC Davis's territory ready to pull off the comeback, when suddenly officials cleared the field and everyone out of the stadium when inclement weather was appearing over Alabama. After a numerous delay, the game was officially declared a no contest, with 7:46 left in the quarter. Not exactly how you want your game to end, and for America, it will be another day until we get an FCS ranked matchup. The next games, also starting at 7 o'clock, was Sam Houston going to Western Kentucky in an influential and consequential CUSA matchup. Western Kentucky went back to the Conference USA Championship that year, and they had to beat Sam Houston to get there. Western Kentucky was only one of Sam Houston's 2 losses in conference, the other being Jacksonville State, meaning that they would be locked out of the conference championship. Regardless, they would head up to Western Kentucky Stadium to battle it out for what would be a statement victory in whoever wins and how the conference championship race will shape up this year. Now, this game would be the QB battle for this year's Week 0 between Hunter Watson and Maverick McIver. Hunter Watson is the senior quarterback for Sam Houston. He was chosen to start this time over the Wisconsin transfer, and this is his second year as a starting quarterback. Last year, he completed 62% of his passes for 1,800 yards, getting 12 touchdowns to 8 interceptions. Maverick McIver is the senior quarterback from Abilene Christian that is starting for Western Kentucky. This is just a man's first year at the program, but from his third and last season at Abilene Christian, he threw for 3,800 yards for 30 touchdowns to just 7 interceptions. Yes, Hunter Watson wasn't exactly given the full slate of time. He's obviously going to have some tough competition this year, and if both QBs want to elevate their programs to a possible Conference USA title, then they need to win this game. The first half was immaculate, starting off with a Western Kentucky touchdown, followed by a Sam Houston field goal. They ended up missing that next kick, but both teams would respond with touchdowns of their own, and by the end of this first half, it would be a score of 20-10. But Sam Houston wasn't going to give up just yet, so they started making a statement on the ground.
Here's McCaskill, blasts his way through. Alton McCaskill, touchdown Sam Houston. A veteran at quarterback on the drag route. Barry's tagged immediately, the ball's out. And Sam Houston has it, no whistle. And scooting to the end zone, Jamar Diaz.
Despite the plays, this seemed to have woke up a fire in Maverick McIver, as in their next 2 drives, Western Kentucky would throw for 2 touchdowns. Seeing that they were losing ground, Sam Houston would eventually throw a costly interception that would give Western Kentucky the game once they scored. That costly turnover seemed to have broke the offense, as by the time they would get the ball back, they could simply not move it anymore. With the score of 41-27, the Bearcats still have some work if they want to be the best team in Conference USA. There is still a lot of potential in these 2 teams though, and especially in Maverick McIver. He threw for over 400 yards, including 3 touchdowns. Hunter Watson, despite being outmatched, still had 300 yards of offensive production, with 200 in the air and almost 100 on the ground. And even if Conference USA is not necessarily the strongest of the G5, it will still deliver one of the most close title races that you will see this season. The second and last game of FCS on a neutral field for today happened at 7:30, the MEAC and SWAC Challenge between NC Central and Southern. NC Central, they're a team that has sat near the top of the Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference and slowly improving out of conference. They have yet to have a losing record this decade, and in recent times, they have been finishing the season in the top 25, including going to the FCS playoffs in 2023. Southern, they're a fairly competitive team, but they're also incredibly volatile. One year they could be at the top of their division, and the next year they could be around the middle, almost having a losing season. Last year they went 8-5 with a new head coach, and this time they're looking to repeat those results, this time going for the Southwestern Athletic Championship. Their first test would be having to fight one of the toughest MEAC teams on primetime TV. The first quarter goes by, and you kind of get to see how these teams will be playing for the rest of the game. They both score. The second quarter, the same thing happens again, except that NC Central now has an extra field goal to work with. Here it is very obvious how both teams are doing. While Southern is going for big plays and succeeding on them, NC Central is playing more conservatively and is trying to use both the rushing and passing game. Chris Mosley by the end of the game would be rushing for 11.6 yards per carry and 1 rushing touchdown. Unfortunately for Southern, the big plays would begin to run out and they were unable to start moving the ball. Meanwhile, the Eagles would score 2 touchdowns, which would secure the game for them, and the final score would be 31-14. Maybe that was an expected result, but for the Southern Jaguars, that second half was certainly not. It seemed like half the plays were on incompletions or tackles for loss, and the other half would be on losing yardage from penalties. And when Southern ended up playing down to NC Central's pace in the fourth quarter, they would seal the game by fumbling the ball. And that is why NC Central ran a mixed offensive game. It's because passing still mattered. McCoy and Woods did fine, but I think if with a couple more attempts, they would have been able to get as much yardage as they would have needed. Either way, in the annual MEAC and SWAC Challenge kickoff, it was clear who the better team was. Finally, the last game, and definitely not the least for today, Stanford kicks off the ACC season by traveling to Hawaii. In my opinion, I saw this as a pretty even matchup to start the season, so really it all comes down to the players in this one. Starting off at Stanford, Ben Gulbranson pretty much spent his career at Oregon State, but for this time, he's taken over as the Stanford quarterback. And Micaiah Ford, the running back who's hoping to become Stanford's next star, as in his freshman season, he would run for 300 yards, or around 4 yards per carry. Now for Hawaii. Micaiah Alejado is the freshman starting quarterback for this team. He already spent 1 season with the team, but after showing glimpses of what he can exactly do, he'll be needed to make the next big step up for this team. Pofele Ashlock, he's a wide core receiver for this team, who's hoping to bounce back after some setbacks last year and put on some insane results while he's at it. Jackson Harris, he was a previous wide receiver at Stanford, except this time, he will be used a lot more here than he was at his predecessor school. And finally, Kansei Matsuzawa, Hawaii's kicker. He's a Japanese native who started late in his collegiate career, but during his previous season at Hawaii, he made 12 for 16 on field goals and didn't miss a single of his 32 extra points. If you haven't seen this game yet, I promise there's a reason why I'm mentioning all these players here. The first quarter begins, and it starts off with a Stanford field goal, but things immediately get weird.
This is a hooked kick, and a fair catch called for and made. You can't fair catch that on the bounce. This is going to be spotted at the 1.
Wow, and this is a huge mistake.
But that wouldn't deter Hawaii, as a little while later, Alejado would do a short pass to Ashlock and punch Hawaii in onto the scoreboard. At the end of the first, it's looking like the game everybody wanted, but it's only going to get stranger.
First half. Barfield flips it back.
Clay Patterson, aura farmer right now.
Unsportsmanlike conduct. Defense, number 91, his first.
By the end of the half, Hawaii has the lead, thanks to a pass to Jackson Harris, but it seems like the tide is about to change. Players were already going down this game, but nothing could have prepared the Rainbow Warriors for what was about to happen next. Alejado was walking back into the tent, and before he closed it, put up his right leg. This could have been disastrous for Hawaii, as he was practically seen as the future for this team. Remarkably, 1 play and a Stanford drive later, he is back in the game. His right ankle is sprained, and he'll play on it. While Alejado warms up again, Stanford takes a touchdown to take the lead, but this is when everybody on the Hawaii team starts to wake up. In the next 8 minutes, they'll need to stop at least 2 Stanford drives and at least score a field goal to take it into overtime.
High snap. Kick is on the way, and Matsuzawa nails it. And this game is tied.
Hawaii has tied the game. All of their best players have done the work they needed to do, and they are now given the ball back. Meanwhile, that costly turnover was the only interception Gulbranson threw all day. Micaiah Ford's over 100 rushing yards and a touchdown is the reason why Stanford even took the lead, but for now, they're stuck in their own territory and they get cold feet. They have to punt the ball away. What wasn't known at the time, though, is that they would fail to use any of their timeouts during Hawaii's final drive. Regardless, with a minute and a half to go, it's time to see what Hawaii's future is really made of.
Rule, so keep that in mind.
Second down, throw to the sideline. Caught there, that's a first down. That's a nice move by Jackson Harris.
Don't be surprised, he runs the middle.
A little bit of a stunt up front, and Sims on a screen inside the 30, blasts his way down to the 22. Clock stops, marked at the 21. Snap, kick is up, and good! And Hawaii has done it!
Unbelievable, gritty performance.
Kanze Matsuzawa had not missed a kick all day. And when there was an opportunity to walk off the game with the field goal, he took it. The game is over, 23-20, Stanford upset. While beating Stanford may not be seen as impressive by some, for Hawaii it was a masterclass in performance. Alihado, the quarterback who was practically limping on the field for nearly half the game, was still able to go out there and produce nearly double the yards as the Stanford quarterback. Matsuzawa, a man who learned how to kick from watching YouTube videos after attending an NFL game, managed to work his way up the ranks and become the Hawaii kicker. And on this day, he became someone that achieved the dream of hitting a walk-off field goal for his team. For reference, the last time Hawaii beat a Power 4 opponent was in 2019 when they beat Oregon State. That was nearly 6 years ago. This was potentially their biggest win since 2021. These are the results and the storylines that I hope to highlight every single week on Groupies. And if this is just the start, then who knows what comes next. Do I think Hawaii is going to go undefeated this season? Probably not. But for games like this, what happens in them is some of the best moments that somebody can experience in their life. And that is something that should be highlighted. And with that is the end of the week 0 review. Thank you for watching, everybody. And here is how I'm going to do the standings format. Basically, I'm going to do what I did in my preseason video and just run down the conference standings. And as for the teams that are going to make the playoffs, I'm going to do it so that it shows the teams that are still in it after each week. My criteria for a team being eliminated is usually 2 games lost. And an absolute requirement being that you make the conference championship. So you could get away with 2 losses, guarantee it's just 1 conference loss and 1 non-conference loss. But if it's more than 1 loss overall, then you might be in some trouble. It's not a perfect system, but it will be a way to help narrow down the teams as the season progresses. Reminder that this was just the appetizer, and that the next time around we'll be reviewing all 68 teams. Thank you all for watching, everybody, and I will see you all next week.